Welcome into Rounding the Bases, the podcast about culture and leadership with a baseball twist, presented by Enterprise Bank and Trust. Hashtag no stopping you. Enterprise Bank and Trust was founded by entrepreneurs with the core focus of serving privately owned, small and medium-sized businesses who have a story to tell, which fits perfectly with me because I'm a storyteller. In Enterprise Bank's case, their commitment is to listen, learn, and guide clients to a lifetime of financial success. Enterprise Bank, together, there is no stopping you. I'm Joel Goldberg, coming to you from the Kansas City Audiovisual Studios. They create engaging spaces. Check them out at kcav.com. My guy, Alan Landever, over there, ask for him. He'll take care of you. I highly recommend. As for this episode, my guest is Gary Wilbers. He's been a successful entrepreneur his entire life, and he's known as the positive culture mentor. And so when he and I were connected, I knew immediately, just with that description, that it would be a good match, being someone that loves to speak and does speak about culture myself. Gary shares the knowledge that he has gained through his experiences to help individuals and organizations cultivate a positive culture that wins, to enhance people and performance, and to find their purpose in business and life. And don't we all need to find that purpose? Beyond that, he has authored many books. His passion is working with Special Olympics of Missouri, which is something I really want to dive deep into. He currently serves as past chairman of the board of directors, and we'll talk a little bit about some of the successes that he has seen in Special Olympics. It's been a lifetime's worth of reward, I know, for him, and so I'm happy right now to be visited from the Gary Wilbers studios, if you will. He's got those podcast studios just like me. Coming to you from the, I believe, home or business offices in Jefferson City, Missouri. Gary, how are you?
Joe, I'm doing great. It's great to be with you today.
Well, it's great to be with you too. And I know, and I say this a lot, that, you know, one of the beauties of networking is the people you stumble upon and get to meet. And I was introduced to you by a guy named Frank Agan, who I'd never met before. And it just kind of works that way. And I knew right away when you and I connected, even if you're a Cardinals fan, that we had a lot in common. How long have you had this passion for talking about culture and purpose? Because I think you found it a lot earlier than I did.
Yeah, I found it early on in my own business. When I had the wireless business, I started back in the days that they were mobile phones. But as our business really started to grow, I decided that I wanted to create something different in our business. And it's been very satisfying to see in the organization I was able to do it, but now going outside and sharing it with others, because I don't think business owners, and I don't think we realize, even if we're individuals and we're watching this podcast, how lucky we are if we're in a place that culture is positive. Because a lot of business environments, that is not the case. In a lot of sports environment, I'm sure you've seen, Joel, it's not the case. And it's that little secret sauce there. You don't get extra money for it, but it really makes a difference in all those areas. And I think that's the thing I love sharing with people, is that difference it makes. Because a business owner sometimes only want to think bottom line. Instead, it's not just about bottom line. It's what else you get out of it.
I like to use the example of, say, the Yankees or the Dodgers, who, by the way, don't necessarily have a bad culture, but at the minimum, they're proof that you can't just buy success. And that's great. They have the deepest pockets. The Dodgers just came off of winning a world championship. They're first since 1988. Your Cardinals have been there a lot more times than that. Right. The New York Yankees, they're the Yankees. They haven't won a World Series since 2001. Now, I'm not saying that they have bad culture there, because I think they have good culture. But I've mentioned this before, that I remember one year that the Dodgers were just loaded, and they were playing here in Kansas City. And I was talking to a player in the locker room that I'd known over the years, and they were having so much fun in there. Guys were running around, and you know, it was, I wouldn't say like a frat house, but it was a fun environment. They were celebrating, they were having a good time. And I said, boy, this is, and they had a high payroll. So this is awesome in here. What a great environment. And he said, when we're winning. And I thought, okay. And I just thought that was interesting. You can't buy culture, can you?
No, you can't buy it, and it has to come from within. You can't do it as the owner. You can't do it as the CEO. You can't say, now we're going to have a positive culture. We're going to create this culture. You can help influence it, but you have to let it come from the bottom up. And that's what we did in our business. Is we started, really what we did is really decided, instead of just about business, It's when we got involved with Special Olympics and started volunteering. That's where my passion came from. It was really with my staff. We decided to do a polar plunge. And I thought there'd be a couple people sign up. The first time we had like 12 or 15 of us. And then one year we had 50 of us. And then it grew to where they started inviting their family to plunge with us. So we had a team of like 100 that plunge. And it just grew within itself. Well, that was one piece of it. But now it became internally, they became associated with each other. And I had stores around the mid-Missouri area, 15 different areas. And what it did is no longer were they from Rolla or Washington or Warrensburg. Instead, now they became part of a bigger team and was part of that one team.
I have so much more in terms of the polar plunge that I just want to go to. I'll get to that one a little bit later too, but you've found personally so much purpose in life and over the years. And I do want to spend a good chunk of time on Special Olympics because I think, and you can correct me or make any edits to my statement here, but I think that with all the success you've had, that your involvement with Special Olympics has given you a lot of purpose and then an ability to share that with others in trying to build culture. It's almost like this one experience really helped and affected the other. It may be in a similar way that baseball has helped me craft a lot of my messaging. It's not necessarily a baseball speech. It's not necessarily a Special Olympics speech, but it becomes very much part of who you are. Correct that however you need, but tell me how much that's been a part of your life.
Well, it all started back in 1994. I went to my first state outdoor summer games. It was down at Fort Leonardwood. That's again 94, so the base wasn't as restricted as today what it needs to be. But in 1994, I went down there and I was kind of a casual observer. The next day I was going to help volunteer, whatever they needed volunteers for. And I go to the opening games. Well, they have the stands full with all the individuals that were there, recruits basically. And they were cheering the athletes. And I'm telling you, it was a competition, which I found out later. It was a competition between different divisions on how loud they could be because they got out of some duty that they really wanted to get out of. So the place was deafening. And they're cheering for the athletes as they're walking in and doing their walk-in that day. And I'll be honest, I got the hair on my arm stood up. And I knew I was hooked then. And then, of course, a stealth bomber flies over. And of course, just all the atmosphere that was there that day. And then the next day, I got to experience the athletes. And what I've really, truly come to find and what really has helped me, I sometimes can get very tunnel focused because I want to achieve that goal. I want to go after that next thing. I was trying to grow the business. The athletes take life as it comes. And I've told them this many times. That's what I'm trying to learn from them. Instead of getting all stressed out, all worried, all the anxiety, all the things that's going on in our world that we cannot control, they just love to live in that moment and think if we lived more in the moment, how it would make a difference for us. So that's really what started that passion and that purpose. And then we just continue to volunteer. And then I was lucky enough to get involved on the state level on the board and with a capital campaign side of it. In the last 2 years as a board chair. 2 challenging years, but it was still very worthwhile.
So let's go back to 1994 for a moment. And I was probably passing through town at that point, knocking on doors for television jobs, because I remember doing that in Columbia and Jeff City and all around the country for that matter. But this was obviously a life-changing moment for you. But I'm curious what got you out there? What had you say? And I hope that any one of us would have an interest in just going or volunteering at a Special Olympics event. I mean, we've all been touched, but what brought you in there?
Yeah, what did it was I installed a car phone for the CEO, president and CEO. He moved in and actually it was in 1991, he moved in to Jefferson City to take over that position. And of course, those days you had to take them back to their office because it took 4 or 5 hours to install everything. So we got talking and he said, hey, you need to come check out Special Olympics, told me all about it. And I told him at his roast when he retired about a couple years ago, I told him at that time he wasn't a very good salesperson because it took him 3.5 years to get me to my first games. So we joke about it now, but he just kept following up with me and said, hey, you need to check this out. I'd love you to come to the games. And I'll be honest, at that time, there was a little bit of a business decision. We were moving into the St. Robert market, which was close to Fort Leonard Wood. And so I decided that year I'd go check it out. And it was one of those things that I wished I would have done it sooner.
Well, yes, you wish you would have done it sooner. With that said, the other side of it is now 26 plus years of experience with it. And you touched on this a little bit. And before I get into your book and then the baseball themed questions for you, how much has Special Olympics changed your life just overall, whether it be personal, professional, because you have experiences and perspective now that no one could have without going through what you did?
Yeah, I think the biggest is understanding people. Because, it's easy to understand someone, and our world can learn from this today, that agrees with everything we agree with. But the difference is trying to understand people that don't agree with us or are not the same. And the athletes, really, the biggest thing that the difference is they do is they take things as it comes. And we can learn so much from that, because the key is we can be learners instead of them. I tell people all the time, I get more from them than I ever give. And I do a lot with Special Olympics, but I still feel I get more back because I become a more rounded person and individual. The other thing, Joe, I will tell you that it's done that at the time, I did not see that. And I didn't have children until 1999, but my children has grown up around this. And I will tell you, they're not perfect by any means. No children are, but I can tell you they're more understanding than a lot of children because they don't understand that. And some of that bullying, when they saw that, if they came home and talked about it, I told them, I didn't care if it was their best friend. You got to tell them to stop that, because maybe that person has a challenge, something that you don't know about. And I said, when you go to those summer games and you go to those activities and volunteer, those athletes, it could be one of those individuals. Maybe it just hasn't been diagnosed yet. And so I think it's given them an understanding that, be quite honest, that I really didn't expect at the time, but one that I'm really proud of, because now they volunteer and want to help out in those events. And I think it's going to be interesting to see as they become adults, they're in college now, what will their life become? I've got a son that's in social work right now, is in his studies. So I have a feeling that's part of that is playing into that.
So you have that, you have the speaking business, everything that you're doing with clients, and then the most recent book, which came out in 2020. I was going to say this year, we have moved on from that year, but there were some good things that came out in 2020. Your book was one of them. Mine came out a little after. I hope people feel that way, but Cultivate Positive Culture, 10 Actions to Faithful Living. Tell me about the book and the inspiration in writing this one.
Well, the inspiration was I've gathered these 10 actions over the years, and I really was like, I need to share this story. And it's not actions that are revolutionary. I'll be honest, I've picked them up from other mentors and other places that I've read and everything else. But I put these 10 together that to me kind of became a framework that I wanted to live my life around. And I've done that for quite a few years. And of course, when you become a speaker, you start thinking about what do you want to write about? And I was really trying to develop, how does this play into cultivating culture and really creating that culture? And I decided the best way to do it, because for me, a fable story format helps a lot of people be able to receive that message. So I developed that message and actually worked with someone to help me kind of develop that message of how we wanted to create that story. So we get them into the story. But the only thing is, when we got done with the story, I felt like it was really good, but I was a little bit concerned the 10 actions might get lost. So I decided then that I would follow up with a kind of a second part that would share how can you put those 10 actions in your life. And I don't want anybody to go put 10 of them in their life right now. What I tell them to do is pick one and decide that's the one message you need. Maybe it's about attitude with the challenges we've had the last 9 to 12 months. Maybe attitude's one. Well, then decide that's the one you want to really work on and really make that become ingrained in you. Then you can always pick another one and do another one at that time. But it gives people a well-rounded, and then that additional item that I gave, it gives them how they can put those actions into their life.
Well, and none of these are check a box type of things. They don't just get done today.
Right.
You start working on them today. And so that can become overwhelming. Just some of the keys that you have written about, 10 keys to faithful living. And I love this one. She just sort of talked about it. I'm a person of action. I choose to seize the moment, and I choose now. We can all do that at any moment. And it doesn't have to be something major either, right? I mean, it's just committing to do something. Hey, I want to commit to reaching out to more people, or being more connected, or bring some joy to someone else, or taking care of myself, or making sure to share love with someone, or whatever it is. I mean, this is all very controllable, right?
Yeah, it's all within our control, and that's the best part. And then we make a difference, and we decide right then. But a lot of times what we do is we think about it. You know, we're early in 2021, and the challenge sometimes we can get is say, oh, I was going to do this. And back in January, we told ourselves, but now we've got to go ahead and move forward. And that's that taking action, deciding I'm going to make that responsibility. I'm going to decide to move forward with it myself right now at this time versus talking about it. Maybe it's volunteering. You know, if you feel bad, number one thing you can do is go out and volunteer. And guess what you're going to do? You're going to find out it makes you feel good, and you're going to help them in the process. And it can be Special Olympics or any nonprofits. We got plenty of nonprofits that need help. So think about that, and that makes a difference in your life.
If anyone wants to purchase the book, and you can certainly go to Gary's website, GaryWilbers.com, WILBERS, or you can go straight to cultivatepositiveculture.com. There's so much in these 10 keys to faithful living. And of course, number 10, I guess could have been 110, whatever, is I'm a person of great faith. I believe all my talents and gifts come from my God. So that certainly drives you every single day. What I see along with that is just this constant positivity. You're a high energy guy. I know that. And this something from within, Gary, of wanting to help others and share that. And I like number one on here, my life is a message. I will make it what I want to be, which also I think in your case involves helping others make their lives what they want to be.
That's right. I think that's the key is for themselves is really what do they want it to be? And then drive towards that, because we control that. We're within that control. And the thing about, I get asked all the time, how do you stay so positive? I choose to, you know, it's a choice. Charles Swindoll says 10% is what happens to us. 90% is how I respond and decide to act on it. So we choose which way to go. Do I have every perfect day? No, you know, just like anyone else, but I choose to turn it around and tell myself. And I will tell you, I was challenged in this over time, because early in my career, I was a pretty grumpy boss. And I realized, you know what, it created more stress. I mean, I actually had a team member, a person that I knew in the community that used to work for me, left and was working for someone else, and someone was going to go to work for me. And this was after I kind of made that change, but he worked for me previously. And he says, do you know what kind of boss he is? You might really think about that. I don't know if you'll like it. And then when he came on board, he found everything was pretty good. And after we got a relationship being closer, he said a few years later, he said, well, I was told not to go to work for you because you were kind of a terrible boss. And I said, yeah, I'll admit that was me, but I've made a choice to change that. And that's the thing I wanted people to know is you have that capability to change within yourself. Influence yourself first before you can ever influence someone else.
It's so powerful. And I think something, again, that we all have control over. You've got the ability to make that change.
Yeah.
Let's shift gears a little bit. Even though you're a Cardinals fan, you know, I spent plenty of time over on the other side of the state many, many years ago. And I just like to give people a hard time. Hey, bottom line is right now, and we won't get into a whole lot of baseball talk, is that they've got the best corners in baseball right now with the fleecing of the Colorado Rockies and getting Nolan Arenado. But that's another story. I want to get to the baseball theme questions.
We were really happy as Cardinal fans, though.
I know you were. They always find a way. They really do. It's good for baseball, though. Good for this area of the country. Time for the baseball theme questions brought to you by Kissick Construction. Trusted team, reliable partner. Check them out at KissickCo.com. Gary, what is the biggest home run that you have hit in your career?
I really would say it was my getting into the mobile phone business. And I was sharing this last night with some students up at University of Missouri, is sometimes you've got to decide to do something that others thinks is crazy. And back in 1990, the mobile phone industry is not the wireless industry that we see today, that we have a computer in our hand. I actually was told by my dad, good man, has passed away now, but he said, "Are you plumb crazy?" when I told him what I was going to do, that I was going to start selling mobile phones. But if I would have never done that, I would have never owned the company. And I started out in straight sales, commission sales, and I was living on my own already, but I had to make it a go and had to go out there and sell those mobile phones. But today, now to have a phone in the palm of our hand that is basically a mini computer is unbelievable.
How about the biggest swing and miss, and what did you learn from it?
Well, there were several of those. I'm an entrepreneur at heart. So when I hear a good thing, I think, oh, that'd be a great business. Well, I had some people seek me out, and I didn't do my research or do my homework, as I said. And I got into several businesses. Like early on, I was going to be in it was a multi-level marketing type company, and they were going to do travel. And the concept was good. The problem was the people behind it wasn't good. And I got involved in that and got pretty heavy in it. And then, of course, they go bankrupt. And then, of course, you leave a lot of people out. And I never liked that, because when you leave those people that followed you because they believed it was going to be good for them, I tried to make it right to them and said, we're going to try to get as much money as you can back. But I followed several of those. And now I do my research and homework and make sure that it's going to be, you can't always guarantee it's long term, but that at least has a track record.
Final baseball themed question, the small ball question. The book, as I often say, is Small Ball, Big Results. Gary read it and even enjoyed it with so much Kansas City stuff in there. Like you're good. You're in the middle.
I feel like I know the Kansas City Royals now. It's
not all Royals too. We had Pujols in there. I know he's not a St. Louis Cardinal anymore, and some other stories. However, the point of the book is the little things that add up to the big things in baseball, business, and life. What is small ball to you?
To me, it's this acronym, CHARGE. Create habits around real goals every day. I have bracelets with it on it. It's one of the messages I share with every audience, because our small habits, we don't realize how those make us a better person. And when I say goals, sometimes people get all locked up because maybe they're not a goal setter, so they don't think it applies to them. Goals can be the smallest thing. It's about getting up this morning at 4:45, so we'll go to Body Pump and do my exercise. Because if I don't do that small thing to start my day, then I won't get it in the rest of the day the way the schedule is. So sometimes it could be just to give yourself that early morning routine of what you want it to be that makes the difference. So don't get locked up on goals, but it's charge. And the only thing I did learn, Joel, on this one, early on, I charged over people. Mm-hmm. And then I learned, and I love rhinoceroses, and rhinoceros are known for charging. The only thing is, don't charge over people. Instead, charge with them. When you charge with them and you've got a herd, a lot more is able to happen and really be able to move forward. And that became a message that I just, over the years, have really shared, and I think makes a big difference, because if you create them small little habits, that's going to propel you to success.
Charge, create habits around real goals every day. And Gary writes about that in his story on his website at GaryWilbers.com. So you can learn more about that right there. Let's finish up with 4 final questions as we round the bases. And I always say that I don't know where these are going, because I like to listen and kind of pique my curiosity as we're going. So I'll start with number 1 that just popped into my head about 30 seconds ago. You are now officially the first guest that said to me that you love rhinoceroses. Why, where, how in the world did that happen?
I actually read a book called Rhinoceros Success early in my career. And the philosophies out of that book, I kind of took and started implementing. The one that he didn't speak about charging over people, but business success that he had in the book. I can't remember the author at this time, but I probably read that way back in 1990, 91, in that area. And I actually people would start giving me rhinoceros because I use that when I talk to my team. And I now have a collection of rhinoceroses.
Which I'm guessing you're not the only one in the world, but you probably
One of the few.
company. Yeah, one of the few. So that certainly is interesting. I got a good friend, Steven Iverson, who's also a National Speakers Association past president here in Kansas City, and he wrote a book called The Porcupine Principles, and he speaks about that. And so I don't have an animal or anything like that, but that's okay. Maybe I'll come into something. I just have to find something other than a rhinoceros now at this point. Second question, as we round the bases, tell me more about the polar plunge. I don't know that I've ever thought about doing it. I don't know that I ever would do it. I do know that all the fears that I might have in life, I'm more likely to do that than say jump out of an airplane, because I feel like, okay, I've done like the ice bath type of stuff before, which helps the muscles and all of that. But tell me about the polar plunge.
Well, the polar plunge is this year we're doing it a little bit different. First time ever. So it may be your time to do it, Joel, because this year we're doing it differently. You can actually do it virtually. And like we tell people, you could do it in your bathtub. You could do a hot shower, and we're not going to know if it's hot water or cold water or what it is. But normally you're jumping in some cold water to be able to make that difference. But of course, the best part about it is all the funds that's raised from it. You try to get sponsors or people that donate, and it allows all the money that's donated to that goes to our programs for Special Olympic Missouri athletes. And that's probably the best part. I will tell you that water is really cold. I normally do the Lake of the Ozarks one at the end of February, and that's the fastest I run every year. Because it's in, and I do go all the way, submerge all the way in. Some people don't get their head wet. That's not truly a polar plunger. A polar plunger gets everything wet, and then you come out. And then when you come out, then you're running as fast as you can.
Whew, I'm cold just thinking about it right now. And yes, that would get me moving pretty good too. No doubt about it. Hey, I sometimes do have the polar plunge, by the way, with the amount of Gatorade buckets that have been dumped over my head at Kauffman Stadium on a cold night. And I will tell you, that is when I run faster to try to get out of the way. A little bit easier on a 90-degree day. Yeah. Third question, as we round the bases, you started your entrepreneurial career being a serial entrepreneur at the age of 23. What was Tubs of Fun?
Oh, man, you did do your research. Tubs of Fun was a soft-sided hot tub that plugged into 110 and was portable. So we went around the fairs, did the state fair. So like 18 of them the first year at the state fair over the 10 days of the Missouri State Fair, deliver them around the state. But they plugged into 110. So the cool part about it, you don't normally want to use a hot tub in the summer because it's already hot. So the nice thing is these were good. You could end up draining them and then close them up. And they were small enough you could easily store them and then put them back out in the fall and springtime that you wanted to have it there. The funniest part about that whole story is when we were in the Tubs of Fun business, of course, we needed all the cash we could. So the last few tubs, as we got into the mobile phone business, we sold pretty cheap. Well, today, now I wished I would have saved one of those because they were really a neat product.
You have that mind, right? I mean, I love the serial entrepreneurs that just never shuts off, meaning these ideas can pop up at any point. I don't know if it's still that way with you or if the focus has changed with the way you're helping others, but was that just something that was always a part of you?
Yeah, it's just been a part of me. It still does pop up. I mean, I see opportunities and I'm like, man, they need to do this. And sometimes what I'll do is share it with my clients and pass it on to them, but I'll see opportunities that come up. And I've kind of decided, part of it was my pledge I made to my wife that, I wouldn't keep jumping into things and kind of concentrate on this area and move forward in that because it's given us the lifestyle and given us the capability with our family to be able to do the things we want.
Last question, the walk-off, it's perhaps the most powerful one. I know that I could ask you to rattle off your top whatever list of stories from Special Olympics, and sometimes that's like asking who's your favorite kid, and sometimes you feel like you have an answer for that, but you shouldn't do that one. But you've had so many experiences, and I know one that you told me about was about playing unified golf with a man named Keith. Tell me about that.
Yeah, Keith and I have been playing for about 16, 17 years. He would know exactly how many years. But we play unified golf together. So we play 9 holes, alternate shot. So wherever I hit, he has to hit from. I have the most fun doing that. And it's one of those things that just relaxes me. We go out. I know he loves old time country, not like the 70s or 80s. I mean, talking the 40s, 50s, and 60s. He knows which channel it is on my Sirius XM. So when he gets in the vehicle to go to the golf course, the first thing he does is put that old time country on. But we just have a good time out there playing, enjoying each other's company. Learned a lot about him. And, you know, he was someone that was in our community where I lived. I knew who he was. I knew his sister, went to school actually with his sister. Spent a little bit of time with him in high school, but it's now so fun to be able to give back. And, you know, to be quite honest, we'll call each other every couple of days. He's one of those people that, you know, I just love connecting with. Right now, he's ready for golf season to start. And for us, that starts around May. And he keeps calling me, Gary, you ready to play some golf this year? And I always say, yep, I'm ready to play golf.
And I'm guessing that on the bad days, we all have them, the worst of days, it's guys like Keith that bring you back.
Yeah, it really is, because seeing them really enjoy and appreciate what you do, and then really just that kid in me comes back out, which we all need to kind of have that kid back in us a little bit more. But they give so much more. And, you know, like I said, it takes the blinders off and opens me up to say, my little concerns or worries I got really aren't that big of a deal right now.
The book out in 2020 is Cultivate Positive Culture, 10 Actions to Faithful Living by Gary Wilbers. Again, you can get that at cultivatepositiveculture.com or more information at GaryWilbers.com. His first 3 books, should mention those, the High Achievers Leadership Formula. Second one was 21 Ways to Attract, Retain, and Engage Millennials. Third is Positive Culture Wins. And the most recent, Cultivate Positive Culture. So 4-time author here, Gary Wilbers. And also, if you want to reach Gary, Instagram, G Wilbers, Twitter, at Gary Wilbers. His website, as I said, is GaryWilbers.com. Gary, thank you so much for spending the time today. Very inspirational. I know that you're doing amazing, impactful work. We'll continue to do so. I'm glad that we've been connected. Thanks for hanging out on Rounding the Bases.
Joe, it's been great being with you. And as I always tell people, make it a great day.
Absolutely. He is Mr. Positivity. I love being around the energy givers. I write about that in my book. A shout out to my sponsors, Kansas City Audio Visual, Kissick Construction, and Enterprise Bank and Trust. Businesses often come to Enterprise Bank because they demand and frankly are worthy of more than the status quo and need a local partner who understands their business. That is going to do it for another episode of Rounding the Bases. I'm Joel Goldberg. You can reach me at joelgoldbergmedia.com. You can find the book there. Also, if you'll jump in on the YouTube channel, just search for Joel Goldberg Media. And if you'll subscribe to that, all of these interviews can be seen in that or on that YouTube channel. For Gary Wilbers, I am Joel Goldberg. Thanks for checking out Rounding the Bases and hope to catch you next time.